Hey guys, Nuie here, and welcome back to the next episode of our build theory playthrough, or well, series. So this episode, I'm going to be talking about my Ellie Wander, which is going to be my basically Elemental Wander character with the Scion class. So this is going to be my first Scion of the league, and Scion has such a great amount of utility as well as just a large amount of really easy dual socket nodes. So that's why I've decided to play it, and I feel like it has the best way to set up for an Ellie Wander without having to worry about Elemental Reflect, because of just the amount that it's able to retrieve both from the Ascendancy as well as just from the skill tree. So for those of you guys who don't know, Wander characters typically are built using either Power Siphon or Kinetic Blast, and that's your main ability as far as area clear, and then you use Barrage for single target. So that's my build is no real different in terms of that, where I'm going to be using Kinetic Blast as my area clear, and then I'll be switching to Barrage for my single target damage. Now where my build will differ is that my build is completely focused on elemental damage. So no physical damage or anything like that. It's all lightning and cold damage. So all of my damage is converted over to lightning and cold damage. I have several uniques already bought and ready to go to be able to run this. So it's pretty comfortable. It has pretty decent life. I wish I could grab more, and I'll probably just end up using some of my jewel sockets to be able to grab some life, as well as just some projectile damage, things like that, and even cold damage or lightning damage. Either of those are good. But when I first started making a Wander, I originally started out with just Ranger and started out with just this kind of tree standing out that way. But then I decided to revamp it and ended up on the Scion wheel. So this is how the full tree plans out, as far as everything that you just reach basically without having to use your Ascendancy node. Is you'll grab tons of life, you'll grab the entire Scion life wheel, plenty of resist, projectile damage, and then evasion, and then you're going to grab all of the life regen nodes, and as well as this jewel socket. And then here's where you really build, the build is really necessary, is for Ashen Frost. This gives you 10% reduced reflected damage, and then we're going to grab Elemental Overload and just extra elemental damage with wands. We're going to have all the elemental damage over here from the Templar nodes, as well as extra life regen and extra life from here, as well as extra reses from here, and extra elemental damage with attacks from skills over here. And then we're just going to round that off with some health. Now, the portion that you need the Ascendancy tree node, and I'll head over the Ascendancy in a minute, is so that you can come through here, grab the extra evasion, extra life from the Ranger tree, as well as the extra cold damage from Fangs of Frost, and the extra elemental reduced reflected elemental damage, so that from Primeval Force. And then you're grabbing the extra evasion as well as this damage conversion, which is extremely necessary for you, converting a lot of your physical damage to cold damage. So this is extremely important node. It also gives you a lot of increased cold damage and projectile speed. And then you're just going to finish it off with some life, as well as some more evasion and more elemental resist. And then you're going to grab Forces of Nature, which also grabs you some more elemental damage and elemental pen. And then you can just finish it off with some extra life and regen and evasion from here. So this is how the whole tree plans out, as far as just the skill tree. And then pulling over, heading over here for your Ascendancy nodes, you're going to want to grab Elementalist so that you get 50% reduced reflected elemental damage taken. So that brings your total to about 70, and that's not counting the extra 25% from your Pantheon. But depending on how you run this build, you won't actually need that, because you'll be having a Sibyl's Lament. So Sibyl's Lament gives you the 40% reduced reflected elemental damage, so that takes away all your elemental reflect and makes it so you don't have to worry about elemental reflect at all, since that's the over 100% reduced elemental reflect damage. This also allows you to summon extra golems, so you'll be able to run 2 different golems. for my preference as far as his playstyle is concerned, I'll be running a lightning golem as well as an ice golem. So those two golems will be able to I'll be able to get increased cast speed as well as extra crit from those two golems. So those are the two I would like to run. And then you're just, as I said, you're going to want it to scale out in this way. You're also going to want to grab the extra projectile from Deadeye, so the extra projectile speed as well as pierce. And the projectiles gain increased damage as they travel further. So as you throw out your kinetic blast, it'll pierce through a few enemies, and then it'll keep traveling, and it'll do more damage as it travels out. This gives you a nice amount of area clear very quickly. So this is how it plans out, and then you want to finish it off with Path of Ranger so that you're able to grab you're able to start out in the Ranger skill need, and you don't have to waste points here. You can just start out here and grab the extra life. So that's how the whole tree plans out. This is how everything I want to do involved with it, and I will get to a full breakdown and story mode, or well, a full breakdown whenever I do the actual full out guide for this video. But this is where my skills tree is planned out and everything involved with it, so I just wanted to get this out and show you guys so you guys can get a hint on what I plan to do with my LE Wanderers for everything that's involved. I guess I can talk about the gear I have a little bit involved. So basically my skills are basically just kinetic blast, added cold damage, elemental damage with attacks, and I'm debating between pierce and multi-project, so or greater or lesser multi-projectile. It really just depends like on the actual area clear. Like if I'm not liking pierce, I can always just switch it. I already have these color setups in pierce, and lesser multi-projectiles or greater multi-projectiles are the same color, so there's no issue with linking or anything like that. And then for barrage, I plan on going elemental damage with attacks, elemental focus, added cold damage, and greater multiplier projectiles and slower projectiles. To finish that off, that'll be our 6th link. We won't need a 6th link kinetic blast because it does plenty of damage, and it'll be able to clear things very easily anyways. For buffs, I'll be doing Herald of Ice with Curse on Hit, Projectile Weakness, and then Wrath. So that'll be our buffs. And then for the other buffs, I wanted to run Val Haste with Fame Dash and Faster Casting. And then, as I said before, our Golem setup will be Summon Lightning Golem, Minion Life, and Minion and Totem Elemental Resistance. Oh, actually I'm running Flame Golem, so my bad. On that, I'll be running Flame Golem instead. So I get increased damage from Flame Golem. So I run those on the same socket so that they can both take into account Minion Life and Minion Totem Elements Resist. The last thing I'll be doing is Frost Bomb, increased duration, and Blood Rage. So Blood Rage just gives you extra. Blood Rage is to give you plenty of extra life leech for bosses or things like that. And our life regen is enough that it will out regen the actual debuff from blood rage, so you just get the life leech. So there's no issues with that. Frost Bomb. The reason I'm getting Frost Bomb is mainly for the reductions in cold res. A lot of your damage is cold damage and lightning damage, so having the reduced cold resistance helps pretty greatly with dealing with bosses and stuff like that. So that's how my skill tree is planned out. Heading into items, I have just a physical wand. Just pretty much any physical wand will do. Just a nice physical roll on it. You're using the Calton Halt, so extra cold damage from the Calton Halt. Alphal's Howl Center. This is mostly for the chance to avoid the immunity to being frozen, as well as the extra mana reduction, so you have a little bit more mana to work with as far as everything. And also I want the +2 to my Wrath gems, so I wanted that. Next thing I'm using is the Hire's Ire Zodiac Leather. So what this does is it adds extra cold damage to my attacks. Because projectile or kinetic blast is an attack, because kinetic blast as well as barrage are both attacks, this takes a lot of use of that for both of those. And then Hymn Sorrows, so we get the extra 50% conversion, which gives us our maxed out conversion for everything we need. So we get our maxed out conversion as far as physical damage is concerned. And then we'll have just basic evasion, evasion energy shield boots. Just you can either run just flat out evasion boots or evasion energy shield boots. I picked evasion energy shield because it's a little easier for links, but you can choose either of those. A Karai charge, so just extra projectile damage, extra projectile speed, and some extra movement speed, as well as some extra accuracy rating, which is pretty important. It also gives us a nice amount of strength and dexterity. And then you're going to run a Sybil's Limit, as I was talking about before, so we get extra 25% increased elemental damage with attacks. It adds fire damage to our attacks, which isn't a really huge portion, but it's pretty nice. It's just a little bit extra of elemental damage. Rarity isn't that big of a deal, but what this really does is it gives you the 40% reduced reflected elemental damage taken, so you can run a different Pantheon and don't have to worry about the running the reduced reflected damage taken, because you're going to have the maxed out reflect because of this. But make sure this is in your left hand because you're doing elemental damage and not in your right ring slot, so that you don't it reduces the reflect and elemental damage. Then you're going to be running a barracks grip 2 stone ring. Most important part of this is the increased cold damage, and then you want to have the added lightning damage to spells and attacks, as well as just the extra life leech from damaging against frozen enemies or shocked enemies. So just things like that. And then lastly, the last item you need is a Prism Weave. So Prism Weave just gives extra elemental damage with attack skills, adds elemental damage of all 3 types to your attacks, and it also gives you nice amounts of elemental resistance. Also, when you pop a flask, you'll get 30% increased elemental damage with attack skills, so that's a nice added bonus on top of Prism Weave. So when you're running like if you run like an onslaught gem or something like that, or an onslaught flask or something like that, you'll add the extra elemental damage with attacks, so it's nice to have. So that's how the whole layout looks. When I head over to the calcs, as you can see, a lot of our damage is cold damage, so about 450% increased cold damage, and then you also get a large amount of lightning damage. And you have a little bit of fire and physical damage, but the majority of your damage is lightning and cold. So that's how it all works out. And that's everything I was thinking with this build. Everything is covered. As far as like evasion, you have about 306%. You have 194% increased life, as I was talking about before. The only downside is you don't have a huge amount of fire and lightning res, but you can always get those from gear. It's not a big deal. And you can always just craft those onto a piece, onto like your boots and stuff. So it's not too bad to deal with. The only other thing I wanted to address with this build is the fact that it is a scion, so you don't get your ascendancy power right away. You actually have to wait a little bit because of the way the scion works as far as dealing with labs. So for new players, when you do labs, you get 2 skill points each, but scions don't really gain access to anything important until they run their cruel lab, because their nodes just give them extra passive point from skill points and stuff like that. So you don't really get the power until you hit that nice cruel lab or anything like that. So that's just the last thing I want to cover. As far as bandits, you're also going to run Creighton. Mostly just for the attack and cast speed, as well as the extra dodge and movement speed. So this pretty much wraps up our entirety of our Ellie Wander that I'm going to be playing with and that I'm going to be working on. When I get to a full actual guide, I will definitely have that out for you guys, and I'll be able to talk about everything more in depth as far as how this works. But this is what I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to catch you out later in the next Build Theory episode. I'm going to head out. Nuie out.
Heaven sent my residence, it's evident, just visiting, blending.